Today's episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. What interferes with your happiness? What are some things standing in the way of being the best version of you? For a lot of people, life, your past, and sometimes your current situation can cause roadblocks in your life. Mental health is incredibly important, and so many, including myself, can benefit from talking to a professional and working to dismantle those roadblocks. That's why I'm excited to talk to you guys about BetterHelp. BetterHelp knows no two people are the same and will help to assess your personal needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. These incredibly convenient appointments are in a safe and completely private online environment, and you can start chatting with your new therapist in under 24 hours. It's not self-help, it's professional counseling. You can message with your counselor at any time and get a timely response, plus schedule weekly video or phone sessions, which means no driving to an office, no waiting rooms, and no awkward small talk. Just meaningful sessions with experts who specialize in things like depression, stress, anxiety, relationships, trauma, family conflict, LGBTQ matters, grief, and so much more. There is truly someone there for everyone. And BetterHelp is committed to finding your perfect match, which means if you and your counselor don't mesh for whatever reason, they make it easy and free to seek someone new if needed. BetterHelp is more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and with financial aid available and access worldwide, they truly make it easy for anyone to seek the help they need. As a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting our sponsor at betterhelp.com/morningcup. Join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health.
There were two more murders 15 miles away.
When police arrived, they found the telephones and electricity lines.
We have a weird homicide.
A scene described by one investigator as reminiscent of a weird...
Cup of murder. On March 22nd, 1991, a woman was convicted for the part she played when her young lover killed her husband. So if you like your coffee hot but your bones chilled, sit back and start your day with a morning cup of murder. Pamela Wohouse thought she found true love when she met Gregory Smart at a New Year's Eve party in 1986, when she came back to New Hampshire to visit family. They bonded over their shared passion for heavy metal music and fell in love hard and fast. Soon, Gregory was moving to Florida, where Pam was attending college by day and interning at a local television station at night. And in 1989, after 2 years of knowing one another, the pair married. Pamela had aspirations of becoming a Barbara Walters-type reporter. But after failing to find a well-paying job in her field, the pair moved back to New Hampshire after her mother alerted her to a potential position as a media director for the local high schools. Now living back in their hometown, Pamela Smart took the job and began to work as a media coordinator at Winnicott High School. For a time, things seemed to be going perfectly for the pair. She had a good job, as did Gregory, a good man, and a sweet little condo where they could start their lives together close to family. Unfortunately, just 7 months after their wedding, Gregory and Pam were experiencing problems after he confessed to his wife that he had had a one-night stand. She was devastated and took the affair incredibly personally, believing she had done something wrong and wasn't good enough to keep him happy. And those hurt feelings were exacerbated when Pam met William Flynn. Now, the sad truth is, it's not totally uncommon for married men or women to second-guess their choices when they meet someone that possesses what they feel lacks in their marriage. It is uncommon, however, and absolutely inappropriate for that to happen when you meet a boy who has not even reached adulthood yet. You see, William Flynn, or Billy as most of his friends at Winnicott High School called him, had volunteered with a local drug awareness program at his school where the high school sophomore met coordinator Pamela Smart and bonded with the teacher over the same heavy metal music she had once bonded with her husband over. Pamela was 22 years old, and Billy was just 15, an age difference that may not have been a big deal if the boy was an adult and she was not in a position of power. Now, there are conflicting views on who seduced who and how serious the relationship was. But according to both parties, the pair became lovers and had sex for the first time around Billy's 16th birthday, and about 5 or so more times over the course of just 2 months. Pamela was an unhappy woman, a hurt woman, and she was letting all of that cloud her judgment while refusing to see how inappropriate her relationship with Billy truly was. On May 1st, 1990, 6 days before her first wedding anniversary, Pamela came home from a work meeting to find her condo ransacked and her 24-year-old husband lying dead on the ground with a pool of blood surrounding his body. At first glance, this seemed like a pretty open and shut robbery gone wrong, and at the center of it all was a completely distraught Pam who was taken to a mental health facility following her strong reactions to her husband's murder. But before she could even be admitted, and before the case could officially be closed, something happened that would not only blow this case wide open, but make it and Pamela a media sensation. 2 teenage boys from the working-class side of town, Pete Randall and Vance Latime Jr., came forward stating that, in exchange for a lesser sentence, they would plead guilty and tell police what really happened to Gregory Smart. According to their story, Vance was given money by Pamela to purchase the bullets necessary to stage her home and make it look like a robbery, and to kill Gregory Smart. That Billy had pulled the trigger while Pete held a knife to his face, and Vance staged the robbery, and a 4th boy named Raymond Fowler waited outside in the getaway car. They continued stating that, while Pamela wasn't there the evening of the murder, it was her and Billy who orchestrated the whole thing and offered them $500 apiece. Police, who knew nothing of Pamela and Billy's affair, were at a loss as to how a group of teens connected to the married woman. That was until a girl named Cecilia Pierce came forward with an anonymous tip. Cecilia, who was also working with Pamela on the volunteer project, had formed a big sister, little sister type bond with the young adult and told police that Pamela had a habit of forming close bonds with her teenage students, that she hung out with them like they were her peers and had even begun dating Billy Flynn, which she knew because she walked in on them having sex. Police began to close in on Pamela, who had a series of conversations with Cecilia Pierce that were, unbeknownst to her, monitored by police. On these recordings, Pamela was caught telling Cecilia to lie to investigators, saying if she didn't, police would consider her an accessory to the murder, and saying that when placed in the witness box, she would need to tell jurors that Pam wasn't involved. Of course, when eventually presented with these recordings, Pamela stated she was simply fishing to make sure Billy didn't kill Gregory, that she was conducting her own personal investigation, and the conversation was all an act. Regardless, Pamela Smart was arrested on August 1st, 1990. With all 5 parties behind bars, lawyers began preparing their cases for what would be one of the first trials to allow TV cameras into the courtroom. Soon, Pamela, Billy, Pete, Vance, and Raymond were all household names, as the entire world tuned in daily to see what new salacious detail would come out in court. Pamela, the blonde, beautiful, well-dressed teacher, was being accused of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and witness tampering, and the narrative created was that she seduced 15-year-old Billy and threatened to stop having sex with him if he didn't take out her husband. If convicted, during the trial where the star witness were the teenage boy she supposedly manipulated, she faced life in prison. As the trial began, there were a number of issues that stacked the cards against Pamela. Not only was the media an ever-present problem, especially when they concentrated a lot of attention on her physical appearance, but the jury was not sequestered until the second day of deliberation, with one member making tape recordings about her thoughts on the trial, and neither were the witnesses in the trial who were able to view each other's testimonies on the stand. And when Pamela got on the stand and told her side of the story, claiming that while she did say the relationship had to stop because of her marriage, she never plotted to have Gregory killed, she was deemed a cold ice princess who spared no tears for the man she once loved. Billy, on the other hand, was a sweet, wide-eyed teenage virgin who became obsessed with an older woman who should have known better. While on the stand, Billy cried openly and expressed his remorse for the murder, gaining everyone's sympathy and making Pamela's lawyers' arguments difficult to believe. According to the defense, while Pam did have a relationship with an underage boy, it was Billy who was the mastermind of the murder. And not only did she have no part in it, but she didn't even have any knowledge of the plan. After 14 highly dramatic days of trial, on March 22, 1991, Pamela Smart was found guilty of being an accomplice to first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and witness tampering for her coercion of Cecilia Pierce. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Pamela Smart, despite being in prison, remains a figure of controversy. In 2003, scantily clad photos of the once teacher were published in the National Enquirer. And in 2004, she and another inmate sued the officials at Bedford Hills, saying that they were being sexually harassed and assaulted by corrections officers, who forced them to pose for those suggestive photos. She won her judgment and was awarded $23,000, most of which went to pay her attorney fees. Since starting her sentence, Pamela has tutored other inmates, earned 2 master's degrees, and became a member of the National Organization for Women, campaigning for the rights of women in prison. While she still maintains her innocence, she acknowledges that the sexual relationship, which she refers to as an affair, that she had with Billy as the catalyst for the murder. That Gregory would still be alive today if the two had never met. She also says that she keeps up with Billy while in prison because, according to her, he is the key to her freedom. That she hopes one day he will come forward and tell the truth, which will earn her exoneration. Billy Flynn in 1992 was sentenced to life in prison for second-degree murder, and after earning his GED and completing charity work, was granted parole in 2015. He was released on June 4, 2015, just a few days after the 25th anniversary of Gregory's murder. Pete Randall was given the same sentence and was released on the same day as Billy in 2015. Vance Latine Jr. was given life but released in 2005, and Raymond Fowler was sentenced to 30 years, released in 2003, sent back for parole violation, and released again in 2005. The case of Pamela Smart and Billy Flynn still fascinates today, with many fighting for her release and against the gender bias they feel released the boys but has kept her behind bars. Thank you for joining me in my morning cup of murder. Please join me again tomorrow to hear what terrible thing happened on March 23rd. Don't forget to rate and subscribe and let me know how you like it. If you want to help support the podcast, there's always Patreon or just sharing it with your true crime obsessed friends. And remember, stay safe.